Hello, everyone. Welcome into Classic Wax, brought to you by the Beat Sessions. I am your host, Mitchell Weary. Very nice to be with you on this Thursday evening, mixing things up a little bit. Work has been a tiny bit chaotic the last week and a half or so. Had to switch a few things around this week. Hopefully it's not permanent. If there are permanent changes made, obviously, I will keep you guys posted on all of that. But just super stoked to be with you after a pretty fun music week, actually. Excited to talk about the Weather Station. Excited to talk about David Gray. Both records I enjoyed very much. The Weather Station putting out Humanhood, and David Gray putting out Dear Life. Fantastic records. Stoked to talk about those, incorporate them into this session tonight, where we are talking about Our Lady Peace and their 1997 record, Clumsy. Probably the record that they're most well known for, but a band that stylistically so unique, and especially in the mid to late 90s when they started to blow up. Something that just, you hear a lot of familiarity as far as what was going on with the alternative rock sound at the time, a little bit of the grunge sound at the time. But this is a band that certainly carved out their own niche. And Rain Maida, man, that voice of his, that is something else. I mean, it just borders on chaos. I mean, what he does, it's pretty impressive. So I'm very excited to talk about that band tonight, talk about this record, and to feature it as a Classic Wax segment. If you're new to this segment or the channel in general, please like this video, share, subscribe, do all those things to help me blow this project up in 2025. Classic Wax is an opportunity for me to interact with all of you in the live format, talk about some older records. Classic album reviews basically is what we're doing here. But two big factors that we need to abide by are the album needs to be 20 years older or more, and it needs to be released on this day. So January 3rd, 1997 is where we're going to tonight. For all of you who follow the channel, you know how much I love David Bowie. Station to Station was released on this day as well, and I thought about going there, but I was like, oh man, if I do like four Bowie, it would be 4 Bowie records in about 5 weeks. Got to balance the scales a little bit. That record's always going to be there for us to talk about, for us to chat about. And so one day we will get there. We will take a look at that record. But for the meantime, I felt like mixing it up, doing something slightly more contemporary, something that really hit home with me during my adolescence while I was growing up in the 90s. And just an impressive record. I think that this is a band that I think a lot of it has to do with, coming from Canada. It's really weird how arbitrary that factor is. You would think just being right there on the northern border that there would be more visibility, more access to the American market for most Canadian bands, but it's wild. It's wild how many really good bands, good outfits that we've seen over the years come out of Canada. I mean, I immediately think of Rush. I think of Neil Young. As far as solo artists, I will say Bryan Adams. I'll say Alanis Morissette. But there's some other ones that that gain some visibility that maybe they shouldn't have. Nickelback comes to mind. I can't help but rag on them. I'm sorry. You guys know I am. I'm one to encourage anybody to listen to any music that they love. If you're a Nickelback fan, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to rag on them. I would say in return, rag on me. Give me some shit for throwing some shade. I'm willing to take it. I can always deal with that. But while we're getting into this thing, I want to start talking about the first record that I reviewed this week. We'll get into the Weather Station and their new effort, Humanhood, which, I mean, this is an outfit that I've grown to love so much since getting into them, since discovering them, and a band that started off with a very folk foundation, contemporary folk foundation. Folktronica is something that's going to come up because we're talking about David Gray as well. But I'm not a fan of that term. Not a fan of the portmanteau there. I don't know. There's something that I kind of like will throw it into the realm of pop punk. I feel it's kind of a cheap label to describe a cheap sound, and both of these artists really doing magnificent things with their new efforts. David Gray, a guy that has put out 13 records now with this new effort, Dear Life. But the Weather Station, I'm so impressed by the way that that this project continues to develop. The jazz driven sound that is there, and then the players that are just constantly on board here, working in this outfit, making this project happen. A sense of I feel like the natural world that's really driving the sound, and Tamara, the head of this project, Tamara Lindemann, it's wonderful watching her sound grow and develop, and her previous few records really focusing on the concern of climate change and the world around us, and I love that. I'm a big outdoors person myself. Spent a number of years working at REI, and I enjoy my time outdoors. I enjoy hiking, I enjoy canoeing, paddleboarding, anything that's involved with just being under the sun and getting fresh air. And so I love the project and its focus on really driving home the importance of taking care of the natural world. It's something that I think I noticed a lot during COVID as well. Being that all of us were shut in, there was those opportunities when we could to escape outside and to do things. And sadly, one of the big things I noticed was people not taking care of the natural world around them. The simple rule of if you pack it in, pack it out. And so you'd show up to campsites, you'd show up to trailheads, and shit, you'd even get like a mile, 2 miles into a trailhead, and you'd see spots where garbage had just been dumped, and people not taking care of that resource, not respecting it for their own use and for the use of others. And that was really frustrating. So I really enjoyed the fact that she made an effort to create a couple of records. The second project wasn't so much it's a byproduct of those recording sessions. I'm glad she put out that music, but Innocence is a record Ignorance is a record that I think that the point that she's trying to get at, and to reiterate that point of knowing that our resources in a lot of ways are finite. There's a lot of things that we can do to undo the world. So in order to make sure that doesn't happen, to make sure that we have a beautiful garden for future generations to enjoy, we need to respect that. And without getting too far on my high horse, I would say it's one of my biggest frustrations with the boomer generation. A lot of elderly people now at this point, but a generation of people that I think were the first to realize the modern world and everything in its accessibility and also its disposal, how easily it is to just create and to throw away. And it's unfortunately a mindset that we have to reverse. And so I appreciate her making an effort to sound off on that and to encourage people to be better. I do enjoy the way that she talks about how it became detrimental to a certain degree, the focus and how it kind of ate her up in being so passionate about this one cause. She lost her focus on her own well-being, and it's certainly it's not an abnormal thing. I think that she's dealing with and experiencing an issue that to some degree all of us have had. You become really passionate, really involved with something, and you put your entire being into it. You care about it so much. I'm coming off that right now, and to see outside forces, have a negative impact, and to know that there's only so much to a certain degree that you can do about it, it can be frustrating, and it can be mentally just so cumbersome. And so what I love about the new record, Humanhood, is her getting back to this self-discovery, and in doing so, writing in a way that is really going to open up her audience to to discover themselves as well through this record. I think it's a great effort, and I can't praise her enough for these sessions as well. There's this element of just getting into the studio and improvising, this organic feeling that is in the music, and again, coming from a folk foundation and working into this modern jazz-driven sound that she's developed. It makes her music so fun to explore. It's the type of record that you can sit and throw down over and over again and discover new nuances, new textures, new instrumentation, and just fantastic for that reason. So if you haven't checked out Humanhood by the Weather Station, please give that a go. Phenomenal record. I enjoyed that very much. Really enjoyed this new David Gray record too, entitled Dear Life. Coming off of his last record, Skellig, released in 2021, did an album review for that record. I said it in this new review. I'll say it again. I wasn't fair to that record. It's a good record overall. I think that what I found lacking was the development of textures as his compositions progress, because that record very driven by a minimal aesthetic. Beautiful, and the more I listen to it, the more I learn to appreciate it. But also talking about David Gray projects in general and the way that they tend to be quite long. And most of his records hit that hour runtime. And as you all know, we like to talk about vinyl records on this channel. The wax format is limited. It is, I would say, maybe the biggest shortcoming when you're talking about records. There's only so much space physically that you can fit on a 12-inch record. There's only so much sound that you can compress into those grooves. And so when I see a guy like David Gray put out a 60-minute record, it makes me just think either trim it and give me that one record experience, or if you're actually going to make a double record, please fill that out. At 60 minutes, you could easily throw down another 75, 80 minutes of music in that project and make it a full double LP. It's one of the things that, Tool, I always bring them up. They're the first band that usually comes to mind, but that was one of the things that I think really made Lateralis a brilliant project, is utilizing the CD medium back in 2001 when that album was released to its fullest potential. I think that record has roughly about a 78-minute runtime. It's somewhere in there. It might be a little shorter, but it's a record that, knowing that you have the potential with that medium, maximize it, utilize it, and make a project to give people the full value. I mean, especially because record buying is expensive. I want to give a shout out to All Day Vinyl. It's a fantastic Instagram page if you guys haven't checked it out. Guy lived in the Palisades and unfortunately lost the overwhelming majority of his beautiful record collection. And it's so unfortunate. It's so sad. I would love if any of you could maybe make an effort to send a gift card his way, help him out. He was able to save some of his collection, but ultimately a lot of that one-of-a-kind wax was lost. It's devastating. It's so sad to think about. There's a great piece in the LA Times, though, about him, and I'm trying to blank on his name. I was messaging him earlier, but I should know. But All Day Vinyl, check out that Instagram page. Just a fantastic dude, and I really admire his perspective as far as acknowledging that there are a lot of people that lost a lot more. And while it is a bummer that 25 years of collecting is gone, he acknowledges that he's still alive, he still has his health, and he still has so much more than a lot of people have, unfortunately. So check out his page, show him some love. If you guys can send him a gift card to maybe help him rebuild that spectacular collection that he was so kind to share with all of us over these years, it'd be really cool. But the reason I bring him up is that he talks about the beginning of this process when he was younger and digging through those value bins, finding records for $1, $2, $3. And this is at the time when CDs were 16, 18, 20 bucks a pop. And the same thing has happened now with vinyl. And the other thing I talk about is the way that vinyl production is backed up. And so, David, unfortunately, is still sticking with that 60-minute album run, but Dear Life is a beautiful record. I really appreciate the narrative style of his writing. It's I feel like it's been kind of a consistent topic of conversation recently on the show. These collections of music on albums that are like tiny vignettes. It's like a short story collection, and David Gray is one of those guys that writes in that regard, and certainly approaching 60. I believe he's like 56 or 57 now, but feeling in a lot of ways that he does, and reflecting. And that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about the record, is that it really is just like an honest focus on life and the way that things change as we age, as the world around us changes, and how we have to adapt to that, and how it can be somewhat cumbersome. The older that we get, we become familiar with certain things, and the idea of coping with loss and learning to reinvent ourselves and to think differently in a lot of ways, because life circumstances force us to. I really love that about the record. And what's up, Rocket Man? Hello. Yes, I'm here, buddy. I'm trying to talk, but man, if you murdered George Floyd, that's probably not the greatest thing in the world, man. I don't know if we should be necessarily going there trying to talk about uplifting things on the music channel, man. If you want to stay aboard and remain positive, that's totally cool, man. But I will take the time to remove any type of negativity if that continues. But yeah, David Gray focusing on that aging process. Man, I just did. So Jeremy, what's going on, man? We're going to ignore Rocket Man here. Rocket Man, I'm probably going to remove this stuff, my friend. I imagine you're positive AF, my friend, but come on, dude. Like, we're talking about music. We don't need to talk about George Floyd. There's a time and place for that. So we are going to talk about Clumsy. We're going to talk about this record released on January 23rd in 1997. Man, this album, being 41, talking about alternative rock radio at that time in that place, and it's a time and place where avenues were limited. You didn't have streaming platforms. You didn't have access to all this stuff. And so I just remember hearing Superman's Dead for the first time, and also, knowing of Naveed, knowing of Starseed, those songs going into the release of this record. And I remember, having a subscription to Rolling Stone at the time, having a subscription to some other music outlets, and hearing about the struggles that this band had putting together the record. And Rain Maida, it's pretty wild talking about the dynamics in this band and how they put out Naveed, and it basically they get to a point with the writing sessions where they're coming off tour and they try to go back at it again. They're trying to write on tour. They're trying to find different ways to go about the. All right, give me a moment. I got to. Sorry, my friend. You're out. No more Rocket Man. Rocket Man, sorry, dude. Can't be having that nonsense in the chat. Jeremy, always appreciate you, man, and your positivity, your contributions, dude. It's good to have you aboard tonight. Thank you so much for chiming in. And anybody, please, like, if you have anything positive to contribute, if you have anything that you want to say about Clumsy, any cool information that I might miss while we're discussing this record, please throw that out there. Because again, I'm only human. I only have so much time, and some of you might have just some cool stories from going to a show. Maybe you've had a chance to meet the members of the band, and now Hufflepuff is just blowing up all over the place. Hufflepuff, come here, buddy. Chaos on Classic Wax. I absolutely love it. Coming off of touring, trying to get into the process of writing for their sophomore effort, and we all know about the hangups that can be there with that second effort, and especially for a band that was so successful with that first record. Certainly tapping into the American market and making a big splash there, but blowing up in Canada. I mean, they're one of the best-selling bands in Canada in the last 3 decades. And that's a pretty big music scene. There's probably some people out there that would sit and joke about that and say, well, well, it's just Canada. No, man, it's not. Like, there's that proximity right there to the States, right there to New York. I mean, Canada is a spot that really is produced a number of phenomenal artists throughout the decades, a number of artists that we've all grown to love and to appreciate. And so to think about, like all the outfits that are out there, and that this is one of the leading bands in the last 30 years to do the damn thing is really impressive. But they talk about the way that those writing sessions were stalled. Arnold Lonnie working in production on this record. And frankly, Rain Maida just decides that it's either, Mike Turner or, I'm drawing a blank on their former bass player. But basically Mike was just like, dude, if you try to do anything, I'm going to bring the legal house down on this outfit. And Rain was just like, well, we're not going to do that because I know this other guy. Mr. Coots, that really just a phenomenal bass player. Forgive me here, guys. Pull this thing up here. People are making things interesting for me. It's better to have things be interesting than to not be. I'm glad to have some people turning up and hanging out. So Duncan Coots, just a phenomenal bass player. Love his impact on the album. He's not credited for any writing on this project, but I feel like the movement into bringing Duncan aboard and what that did for the band, plays the cello. He's a producer. I mean, really a very talented guy, shifts the band's sound into a direction that is familiar coming off of Naveed, but there's certainly development. There's certainly artistic growth that you can see there. And I just, and I love that. And I love the way that this band ultimately handled the pressure. I think it's worth noting that Taylor Peer, what's going on, man? Thank you for joining. Taylor says, man, I love this album at a time. I've seen them live a number of times. I found this album a hindrance to them afterwards. That's interesting. People wanted another Clumsy, but I just feel you can't write an album about being this depressed and have it feel real and genuine as widely popular millionaires. Yeah, to a certain degree, man, I definitely can recognize that. I think this album came off a place of pressure, no doubt. Touring for Van Halen to promote Naveed, they toured for Plant and Page, and then they come back and they toured for Alanis Morissette as well ahead of that too. So Jeremy too, I want to shout you out that Jeremy says, absolutely love Clumsy. That album means so much to me. I actually met the band. That's dope, dude. Really, I hope that they were cool. I hope that you enjoyed that. They performed at a local pub I worked at on St. Patrick's Day. Damn, in 2015. That's super cool, dude. I absolutely love that. You got videos on an old phone, man. We should connect and chat more, man. If you got those old videos, that would be super dope to check some of that out, man. If you want to, Lightning Sands Entertainment it's all one word. lightningsandsentertainment@gmail.com is the email address that I have attached to the channel. But please send that stuff there, man. I would love to check that out. That stuff is probably just extraordinary. And I think I've never seen this band live, and it bums me out because I think what is so extraordinary about their sound and what differentiated them between so many outfits at the time is just the explosion coming off of Rain Maida's voice. I mean, there's no one in popular music, even to this day, I would argue, that sounds like that guy. I mean, what he's doing with his falsetto and just the range in his voice that he plays with is really unique. And it's one of the things that gives this band its signature sound, no doubt. So I love the story. I love is, trying to get things under control as far as the writing process and retreating to Duncan's cabin up in North Ontario. And they talk about how these guys, there was a recorder that was on basically all day in the house where they were recording, working on stuff. So anything was picked up, anything was recorded. That's really cool. I love that dynamic, just knowing that you could be doing anything, just fiddling around, and find that moment of creativity, and things are being recorded, and organically too. It's not just like you're going back, pressing record, and trying to replicate that. I think there's something about the genuine authenticity of that original moment when you're creating that song that just makes this project so exceptional. They talk about going out and playing ice hockey in the afternoons, and then coming back and collaborating in the evenings and into the night on that record as well. I will note too that I think this band moving from Relativity to Columbia, making that move as far as the label jump there was huge for them too. And it was 2010. I was the busboy. Bro, I've been a busboy too. It's all good, man. It's we all got to start somewhere. We all got to work our ways up. But yeah, this record, there's so many people that I've known over the years that love this band. This is a band that really carved out a unique niche, and behind Rain's voice, the explosion of music too. And there's moments where compositions will just go heavy, all in right from the get-go. But then there's moments where, they are vulnerable, they are mellow. Song like 4 a.m. I think that's maybe the first ballad that they, I don't know if it's the first ballad that they ever released, but I think it's the first that they released as a single. And that's another thing that I want to mention too, as far as this band and their progress and the way that they put things out. This is, hold on, I got it pulled up right here. A little scattered here with all my notes. I apologize, guys. But all right, give me just a second. I lost this, guys. Okay, we're going to pull this up here real quick. And so something I talk about on the channel quite a bit is the release of music and the way that modern bands, I feel like the strategy has changed as far as singles now are released so far ahead of time in a way to promote, and I think that's the wrong way to go about it. What I love about kind of the old school format is when it comes to singles, most bands, they'd have that preliminary single, and Superman's Dead was released a week before Clumsy came out, January 16th. And then Clumsy was released as a single on April 9th of 97. Automatic Flowers, which is such a fire song, July 14th on 97. Carnival was released on October 27th. And then 4 a.m. December 2nd. That's the way to do it. Honestly, if you're going to promote singles and single them out, man, put out an album and ride that wave for a year. Because one of the things I've noticed with this channel is it's been a great tool for people discovering music, being like, hey, I didn't realize that this was out. And so I love that I've been able to do that for some people. And I mean, it means the world to me if you were able to get into the know about something because of this channel, because of anything that was done here. That's super cool. And that's ultimately the end goal. And I love that. But I would say the strategy of throwing down a ton of singles prior to releasing the actual record is it just makes the actual album release a little anticlimactic. And in often cases, it could be extremely anticlimactic. And so riding that wave, and it's kind of like when you see things try to like tip off a little bit, you throw out another single, you pique interest, you hit the radio, and you're able to do that. But different time and different place. Again, we're talking about 1997. There's no Pandora, there's no Apple Music, there's no Spotify, there's none of these outlets to take advantage of. So I can certainly see the argument for taking a different direction, wanting to promote and release prior to that, getting streaming, getting songs on the streaming services before that. But that's I think that's one of the things classically that makes album releases so great is getting the album in its entirety, and then getting that moment in time where the singles can have their space, unfold, do their own thing, and that's really cool. Taylor Prue says, I first saw them on the Somersault tour in 2000. I remember getting them and I Mother Earth mixed up in my head at the time, and I only really stuck with Our Lady Peace. Cool story, man. I appreciate you sharing that. And that's great too. Like this is the kind of stuff, classic Wax. I mean, we are here to talk about tales from 10, 20, 30 years ago. So thank you so much for sharing. I do want to get into the track list on this record though, getting a little long-winded here. Superman's Dead, your opening track. What a single and what a track. The energy of this song, the way that you get this ominous acoustic riff build, just like the driving force of the track as it opens up. I love the way that the drums build in behind it, and there's like these like light synths that are kind of just dancing around as well. It's almost hard to even notice them, but they're there, and it's cool production. I think bass builds in behind Rain's voice after that starts, and then the song goes to work. I just love the combination of instrumentation. The second verse of this track is fire. The way that the guitar and the bass are moving around each other, that instrumental movement is so freaking phenomenal, and one of the things that really makes this song stand out, in my opinion. But you get that hook that's just so catchy, and the feeling, I think, is this foreboding sense that carries throughout this record. And that's what makes the track so brilliant too. Superman's dead. Your superhero's gone. Sorry. That's how we're starting this thing off. And you really get a pretty solid reflection of what you're about to get into as you get into this project. And I love that. I think it has a great impact as an opener. And that coda, man, like it just drifts into that acoustic guitar and doesn't anybody ever knew. I'm not even going to try anymore because I can't do justice to Rain's voice, but there's just that explosion when the coda hits. And I think one of the better 90s alternative singles to be released that decade. If you were going to make me put together a list of top 50, it would be in there somewhere. Top 25 might be a little tough. There's a lot of really good songs, but top 50, no doubt. What an incredible song. Automatic Flowers. I love this track following Superman's Dead. It keeps that, again, that foreboding mood. It continues that. It's set up by Superman's Dead. The vocal and the synth that opens up with the track. I really enjoy the way that the drums and bass work in. Like the rhythm on this track is spectacular as well. Light synths in the verse that kind of upend the mood for a moment, and I love that contrast. I like the back and forth, and it's something that's kind of a signature element of this record. This different kind of darker mood that's maybe set in the verses, and then this oftentimes lighter kind of I'm trying to blink on the proper word for it, but there's definitely a sense of redirection when the chorus is hit on these compositions, and I really just dig that about the record. Carnival is your third track. I'm gonna forgive me, pull this up here real quick, guys. Carnival is your third track. Soft crowd noise that ushers in the opening of this track. It's kind of a unique little open there. And this track, like, it feels like a lullaby in a lot of ways. And coming off of the first two tracks, there's an interesting sense of vulnerability that captures that's captured in the mood of this song. And I love that. I love that shift. I love that hard edge to open up the first two tracks and then stepping back a little bit and showing that other side. I love the way that the vocals is going to take the mood in a contrasting direction. You get this kind of like military roll in the drums that drives throughout the track. Chorus shifts to that hard rocking feel though, and again, there's that back and forth. And I love the middle eight here. It's kind of short, kind of maybe even can refer to it as a bridge, but it hits just really heavy. And enjoy the hell out of that part of the song. Big Dumb Rocket is your fourth track. Could certainly think about that in a number of ways. Big Dumb Rocket. I think there's a lot of bros out there with big dumb rockets that they think with too much. I don't know if that's necessarily what this song is about, but the illusion is one that always kind of kind of made me crack up, and I appreciate it. Quick acoustic open. It's going to lead to this explosion of guitar. And I really love the way that kind of subsides. You get this verse that reverts to a very rhythm-driven aesthetic. Great role in the bass. I love Duncan's bass work on this record. I really genuinely think that bringing him aboard was a phenomenal move for the band. It's unfortunate the way that they forgive me. I'm losing a blank on the gentleman's name. I just want to get it right here. But their original bass player, there it is. Or they're not the original bass player. Paul Martin's actually the original bass player, but Chris Akrit, I believe is how you say his name. A guy that Rain talks about how great bass player, just stylistically wasn't the guy for us. And I think that's the toughest thing about starting a band, especially when you start a band with friends. And I know a lot of these guys have been friends over the years, knew each other before this project started. Their friendships are a part of the reason that it developed. And it's definitely the toughest thing about it. Sometimes you just have to look each other in the face across the room and acknowledge we're going in different directions, and separating is for the best. But unfortunately, losing him, it sucks from a personal standpoint. But again, Duncan is just killing it on this record, and he's definitely a favorite part of it for me. But Big Dumb Rocket got that quick acoustic open, leads to an explosion of guitar. Again, those verses are going to chill out. But the thing about this song that I noticed was the way that Rain kind of takes a softer edge to the vocal, and I really liked that subtle difference there. Certainly an exceptional part of the track. 4 a.m. is your fifth song. Mellow electric riff is going to evoke this somber mood. There's a sense of regretfulness in this track that drives it. The acoustic riff creates this phenomenal texture when that joins. Rhythm drops, and it remains somewhat loose. I like that kind of like open feeling. I think it works for the balladry that this song possesses. But it is going to hit this heavy rock and roll feel at about 2.5 minutes in. So, reminding you that you're still listening to Our Lady Peace. Your sixth track, Shaking, is it's going to open with this. The guitar tone is almost tinny. Super unique. I love it. It definitely allows this track to stand out. And you get a rhythm that I feel the bass and the drums, more so than a lot of these tracks, adopt more of that grungy feel. And there's a lot of people that want to lump these guys into that grunge camp of bands. But I think that their music has always had more of an alternative rock and roll feel. But I enjoy the way that they dabble in that grunge element a little bit, and it's definitely working on this track. The vocal on this track, absolutely unhinged. I think that's one of the things that makes it absolutely spectacular as well. Enjoyed the hell out of that. Clumsy, your seventh track, beautiful tune. Got that acoustic drive coming off of that piano open. And I remember the first time hearing that song, and I was just like, man, where is this thing going to go? I mean, it kind of feels unlike anything that they've ever done before. That piano's great. The acoustic drive, you get that world percussion working in there to back up the acoustic guitar. A bit of bass works in. And then the pre-chorus works. You get that heavy rock and roll feel. And then the chorus is just iconic, in my opinion. I think that the hooks there, the melodies, everything about that moment in the song is gorgeous. Super recognizable. Featured on the I Know What You Did Last Summer soundtrack. I mean, and these guys actually, as far as pop culture is concerned, movies and shows, their music ended up on a lot of stuff in the mid to late 90s while they were really in their heyday, in their big, commercially accessible moment there. Hello, Oscar is your eighth track. Lo-fi guitar is going to usher in this heavy urgency. There's a bit of feedback that drives really heavy to open, and I like the way that the feedback element works in and out. But the track, it gets a cleaner sort of production element as the as the track progresses. Heavy rock and roll sound, lots of guitars though. I really dig the way that they drop in the verses. Chorus is going to drive hard though. It has that signature Our Lady Peace sound, especially coming off of Clumsy, which may or may not to a lot of people have been something very different, may have caught them off guard. So coming at a good moment there. Let You Down is your 9th track. Bit of psychedelic guitar opens up this. You got a heavy rhythm drive on the track. I love the way that the guitars work back in for the chorus elements. Verses are really going to be dominated by the rhythm, really big drive in the bass and the drums. Again, kind of a signature feature to this record, but it's something that I really love about the compositions. And then your penultimate track, The Story of 100 Isles, is your 10th track, penultimate track. Got this kind of like Eastern influence in the guitar a little bit, and I love the way that it builds into a heavy rock and roll feel. Probably of all the tracks, the most that you would say carries an influence coming off of Naveed. But again, that air of familiarity there is something that makes it fun. But also, I really like the kind of hybrid of jazz and rock and roll that this song features at moments. Super fun. It's going to adopt a harder rocking feel as it progresses, but certainly unique and certainly one of a kind in that regard. And then Car Crash is your final track. The song is pretty wild. You got this thick, just heavy rolling bass, ominous drums, just a mood that these guys like set to finish off this record. It's very sinister, this mood that's evoked. The chorus is going to shift to these kind of like flighty guitars. They're urgent. They just kind of punch you. But again, another feature of the record in its entirety. One of the things that I love about it, the way that the guitar attack just comes at you and it's unrelenting. But the lighter textures are going to kind of build into the chorus, into those heavy moments. It's interesting. Like it's still heavy and guitar driven, but there's lighter nuances that I feel there. But the verses are going to remain dark, very much driven by the bass and the drums. And this is a track that, great movement between just the erratic propulsion that is a signature of this song, and I love the way that it ends and it just sort of drifts off, and that is how this album ends. But just such a marvelous record. And guys, I gotta say, it's been really cool having all of you chat and throw down your thoughts on this record while we've been doing the thing tonight. It's what makes this so much more fun for me, and really enjoy interacting with you guys. It's why we're doing Classic Wax. It's why we're taking the live route for these reviews versus just me sitting down and recording some stuff and allowing you to listen to it. So thank you all for showing up tonight. I hope you give Clumsy a spin here in the next week or so. I haven't gotten my work schedule yet, guys. I'm almost positive that my days off will be back to the normal Tuesday, Wednesday, and we'll be able to do Classic Wax on Tuesday night. But if things change, if Thursday ends up becoming the night, I'll keep you posted on that. I appreciate all of you and your patience as far as this process and trying to find some stability. But in the meantime, stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. I know we got some really cool stuff dropping this week from FKA Twigs. Larkin Poe's got a new record. Mogwai. Benjamin Booker. I'm really excited to talk about Benjamin Booker, an artist that I'm just very recently becoming familiar with, but just a great blues and rock and roll sound. He cites the Gun Club, Blind Willie Johnson, and T-Rex as big influences. Hooked me in right there. So stay tuned for all of that. Take care of one another. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I will talk to you guys next time on Classic Wax. Take it easy.